All right. Hey everybody, Keep7 here, back with another Magic the Gathering Arena video, and today I would like to issue an apology. I said in my predictions for the Zendikar Rising Championship that blue-white control in Historic and Dimir control wouldn't do anything. I was 50% right. Dimir control did not do that well in the standard metagame, but in the Historic metagame, Brad Barkley went 12-0. He didn't lose a single match with Azorius control. So I was completely wrong. Nobody expected this. I can't say that, I'm not the only one. I don't think anybody expected Azorius control to take the day when it came to the historic metagame. I think I was in the 4-color mid-range camp, which almost made it. Andrea Mengucci played absolutely fantastically. Ended up losing to Goblins, Goblins piloted by Autumn Perchette, which led to the final of Brad Barkley with Azorius control against Autumn Perchette with Mono Red Goblins, which it was pretty intense. Brad pretty much wiped the floor with the Goblins with his Azorius control deck. It's weird because I would, on paper, I would say Goblins has an advantage because Goblins is always one card away. But I guess with the amount of counter spells that this deck runs and the amount of disruption, there's only one Aether Gust and 4 Censor. But Censor has diminishing returns where Censor's really good in the early game. But Autumn was running things like Herald Horn of Heralds, which was just a card advantage machine. Herald's Horn. So she was running things like Herald's Horn, which would decrease the value of Goblin spells, which was really good for her. It also gave her card advantage. Please forgive me if I'm using the wrong terminology. Maybe I should be using they. So they were using things like Herald's Horn for, literal card advantage, ways to get cards off the top of their library. And get them into their hand, which is something that Goblin struggles with. And then they were using Mind Stone, which was just a great way to play around Censor. So Censor had diminishing returns. After turn 3, Censor was kind of bad, but Brad just didn't care. He was top decking like a lord. He had games where he needed a Wrath of God and he got it, and there were games where he didn't have a counterspell, and Autumn was one Muxus top deck away from taking the game away, which is, I guess people say that Azorius control has a favorable matchup against Goblins, which I guess I believe. I guess you're right. With counterspells and all that, you probably are favored. But Goblins is just one of those decks where you're just one top deck away, and to win, I think he lost one game. They had to play a total of I forget how many matches, but at least in the championship match, he lost one game in both matches. So he beat her, or he beat them four times. He got 4 wins to 1 loss, and Autumn got 1 win to 4 losses, I think. Right? That's just incredible to control Goblins that well. So I want to apologize for just being completely wrong. That is to say, this deck, if you go out there, or if I go out there, or if Joe Schmo goes out there and takes this list to the ladder, you're not going to be 12-0, I can tell you that, unless you're a fantastic player. If you're an average player like I am, you're not going to go well. You're not going to go far on the ladder with this deck. It just goes to show how absolutely incredible Brad is at reading a metagame and knowing his matchups. He knew what he needed to counter, when he needed to counter it. He knew, one Aether Gust? Really? 1 Aether Gust in the entire board, or in the entire 75. I would have gone with so many more, but it's just this guy's head and shoulders above where I am as far as Magic. So it's clearly his list is just perfected. He knew exactly what he needed to beat all the matchups, and he did. He went 12-0, which is just incredible. And also, it just goes to if you know a metagame well enough, if you know what you're coming up against, and you'll know how to kind of structure your deck to beat it. And he did it. which is awesome. Man, MVPs of the Absorb was huge. He was getting absorbs at the right time. Narset Parter of Veils is just such a card. Narset Parter of Veils is insta loss for like if you are able to resolve a Narset and protect it, it just eats those Sultite like Uro. It just laughs in the face of Uro and your Hydroid Krasis. Absorb was keeping Brad alive. I mean, it's a hard counter, and it give him. There were games where he was at like 3 life, 5 life, and it would just bump him back up into a safe, healthy 8, 9. Censor is a great card. I mean, Censor again. I mentioned the diminishing returns. It's a card that after turn 3 or 4, especially against Autumn's Goblins, where they had things like Mind Stone, where they could pay the Censor attacks. Despite the diminishing returns, it's just, every now and then your opponent might tap out and you'll have a Censor in hand, or it's just a fantastic card to cycle. It's a 1 mana cycle. 1 blue mana cycle to get, to find another answer. If Censor's not the answer, 1 mana cycle to find your Absorb or to find your Disdainful Stroke. Also, he only had 1 Disdainful... Okay, so he had another Disdainful Stroke in the sideboard. I was going to say, it looked a lot more like... It looked like he had more than 1. Man, just I would not have it like a deck like he knew like there were I think he didn't sideboard in his extra baffling end against Goblins, which that's the first thing I would do. I would say, oh, I'm against Goblins, I need more baffling end, and he stuck at 3. But I think that's just the kind of 5-head plays that you have to expect from players like that are playing in these championships and stuff. He knows, I guess, that, if by the time he's cast his 3rd Baffling End, the 4th isn't going to matter as much as something that's more important, like a 4th Teferi, or a 4th Shark Typhoon, or a 4th Wrath of God. Wrath of God, I don't say you would ever go below 4, but at the same time, Wrath of God is so bad against Goblins, because if they cast, by the time they cast the, the Muxus, like, it's too late to cast Wrath of God. So I feel like Wrath of God is almost bad, but I mean, I guess at the same time, when you're preventing the Muxus with the Grafdigger's Cage and they're just piling goblins under the board, you can just Wrath it. So, I mean, I'm not saying don't include Wrath of God, but like, I don't know. I'm just kind of talking it through. I'm astonished. It was a fantastic game for those of you who didn't catch it. Or a fantastic day, fantastic wrap up, but a fantastic tournament too. I had fun watching almost all the games. I was not surprised that Jund Sacrifice didn't make it, or any of the sacrifice. I think one sacrifice deck made it to the top 8. I think. But I'm not surprised that that other decks ate that deck's lunch. So one thing that I forgot from my video from before the weekend, where I mentioned sacrifice decks not getting much, I said they got Fatal Push, and I forgot a huge one. Scrap Heap Scrounger is another huge card that the sacrifice decks got with Kaladesh Remastered. But I didn't see, they're powerful decks, they're strong decks, they're very strong aggro decks, but, Uro, like, it's just such a problem. It gains so much life and it generates so much card advantage. How are sacrifice decks that do these little pings with Mayhem Devil and stuff, and although it can add up, like, just the life that you gain, 3 Uros is 9 life, and they just keep casting it and keep casting it and keep casting it. So it's just I just find it hard to believe that Sacrifice was going to do well, and it didn't. Didn't make many spots in the top 8, if any. I think one made top 8. I think one Jund Sacrifice deck made top 8. I think. Can't remember for sure. But the rest of it was all 4-color mid-range, Azorius Control, Goblins. Trying to think of what else made top 8. What other matches I was able to watch, but that's about it. I mean, so as far as historic, that's the big surprise. That's the big surprise. I can't believe it. Azorius Control came out of nowhere. I expected absolutely nothing from that deck. I thought that this deck would get just punished, and Brad Barkley just came out of nowhere and showed everybody that if you're a good enough Magic player, and what I really like about the situation is, and one of the things I like about Japanese players is Japanese players will sometimes come into these tournaments with just out of left field decks. Like if you remember, what was his name? I mean, I guess it didn't come out of nowhere, but Riku Kumagai. Riku Kumagai, when Teamer Reclamation was like the best deck in the format, Riku Kumagai, showed up with a mono black aggro deck, and he did really well with it. I mean, I'm not saying that he won that whole tournament or any. I think he got close, but like it's just one of the things I like about Japanese players is they trust in themselves with out of left field decks, and rather than metagaming, sometimes they'll just have these weird, not weird, but maybe metagamed or just kind of out of left field. You didn't see them coming decks, and everybody expects them to underperform, and then they overperform, and it's a lot of Japanese players trusts in themselves to know a metagame and to know that to trust themselves to actually get a good performance out of themselves. And that's kind of what you see with Brad here. From what I heard from the casters and from Riley Knight specifically, saying that he was testing with people who he'd known for a long time, and he's really passionate about control. He's always really loved control, and it just goes to show, like, if you trust in yourself and you play what you know, you can win a tournament. And that's really encouraging. If every day you go into the ladder, it can really be a beatdown to kind of be. You're playing the best decks in the format. Like, I was going to play Goblins the other day, and I went 4-9 and was just demolished. I was so over Magic. Because you see other people, they cast a Muxus, they get a billion things, and then I cast a Muxus, and I hit like a Goblin Matron. So you play these like tier 1 decks, and you feel like you should be playing really well, and you should be, getting wins or whatever, and then you see people coming into these tournaments with decks that you don't expect to go anywhere, but they trust in themselves to know what they like to play and that they're going to do well with what they like playing. And then they do. And it's just really encouraging. I feel like, maybe I should be playing more of what I want to play regardless of what the metagame looks or what the meta looks like. I mean, obviously you have to take the meta into consideration. You can't just be playing your fun, janky deck because you love it. You have to have something that is going to compete, but you can find something that you really like that can compete, and if you trust in yourself, you might be able to get somewhere with it. So it was really encouraging. I thought that was really cool. So it looks like, as everybody expected, Gruul did really well with some Dimir Rogues and some mono green food decks performing pretty well, but overall in Standard, the overall winner was Gruul Adventures, which I think is what everybody expected and kind of explains why its meta share was the highest of all the decks. And then as far as historic, you have the one outlier of Azorius Control coming out of nowhere. And then we have Sultai midrange, the one Jund Sacrifice deck, piloted by Paulo Vitor Damaderosa, which I guess makes sense. He's a fantastic player and Grand Champion last year. 4-color midrange, piloted by Andrea Mengucci. Sultai midrange. 4-color midrange, 4-color midrange, 4-color midrange, and Goblins. Alright, so yeah, I guess that kind of sums it up, but it's kind of everything went as expected, aside from Brad winning the entire tournament with Azorius Control. So, yeah, just really overall a fun tournament to watch. There were a lot of fun interactions, a lot of fun matchups, a lot of fun games to watch. So, overall the game is in a really good place. And I think that this result is exactly kind of evidence of that. So yeah, go out there and have some fun. Go out there and have some fun on the ladder. Maybe try a deck that maybe you have a fond soft spot for and you think is competitive, and go play it. Just grind it out. Maybe get some wins. Maybe go 12-0, right? Get yourself to the next tier of if you're in gold, get to plat. If you're in plat, get to diamond. If you're in diamond, go for mythic. And if you're in mythic, go for top 1200, bud. Just fucking go for it. So yeah, that's about all I have to say. It was really an inspiring performance. Really impressive, and I'm so looking forward to the next round, to the next expansion, to just to see how the game develops, because it's in a really good spot right now, and new cards could ruin that. New cards could really enhance it. So it's exciting to see where we're at and where we're going. So again, sorry I got it wrong, so spectacularly wrong, but I don't think anybody saw this coming. And what a game by Brad Barkley. So What a day. All right. I'm probably going to be coming out with some content as far as like me playing games. I've been playing a lot of ladder and stuff, so it's really nothing really fun to watch. Just me grinding out. I'm playing Bant good stuff right now, so like Nissa. It's like a Pact of Negation and Gideon combo where you can't lose the game with the Gideon zero tick, and then you can cast a Pact of Negation for nothing, and you don't have to pay the 5 mana on your next turn because you can't possibly lose the game with the Gideon on the field. So, and it's just basically like Bant control with like counter spells and Nissa and Gideon and Uro. So it's a lot of just like kind of linear churning Uro, and there's a lot of decision making to be done, especially what you counter and when you counter it, but not particularly like great content to watch. So I'm trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to brew something that's like fun. I'm really passionate about that mono white control list that I made a week or two ago, and I made a video about. I really like that list. That list was really fun in standard. Now that I'm playing more historic, I've really fallen in love with the format. And revisiting all the cards I'm super familiar with, like Nissa and stuff like that. But I want to try to find a deck that would be like fun. I'm trying to brew in historic is tough because wild cards are a thing, and they're really really hard to get and maintain and use. So I'm trying to find a deck in historic that I'm trying to brew a deck in historic that I think would be fun to watch. And I'm still trying to think of something in standard. I think standard could still, there's still some shakeup that could be done there. So I'm trying to figure something out. So content of me playing games will be coming soon. But I'm struggling to find a deck that would make for not only would be fun to play or would be worth crafting, but would make for fun content or would be fun to watch. So stand by. Still brewing. Still thinking. If you have any suggestions, let me know. But yeah, anyway, that's a wrap. Congratulations, Brad. Nobody saw it coming, but that's an incredible performance. So yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.